All right, let's talk about the 6th overall selection by the Carolina Panthers, Ikem Ekwonu, who, one of these very hyped up tackles. He was my tackle one out of this draft. He was, might have also been the Panthers tackle one as well. In fact, I would expect he was. He was the one who they drafted first. I forgot that for a second in my head. I thought that maybe Evan Neal was selected before him. No, Evan Neal was 7th. Kayvon Thibodeau was 5th. Let's talk about Ikem Ekwonu, the guy in between those two here. We're going to start off with this play. It's a one-on-one block, and again, kind of what we like about the preseason is this is the first time we get to see, okay, can you start blocking guys one-on-one? And right when this play begins, kind of see a good rip move by the edge rusher, but he's beating Ekwonu right here. There's really no getting around it. He kind of used his footwork, and that's something that maybe will just take a little bit of time for Ekwonu, and why some people felt like Ekwonu was a guard, which to me, my argument was, if he's a guard, he'll still be one of the best guards in football. That's worth the 6th overall pick. So that might be true actually, but that doesn't mean that he's not a great player. You do see that there is some pressure giving up right here. In fact, when this quarterback makes this throw, for a second, I thought that it was like a screen pass. It just almost looked like that. It's not a screen pass though. This was not intentional. This was just, he got beat, which, listen, these are the kind of things that you play the preseason for. Figuring out ways you can get beat and then figuring out ways to fix that. One way is just simple. It's a scheme thing, but something like this, if you have help on that side, I'm convinced Ekwonu will not give up a single pressure when he has help. I'm just convinced that it'll happen because you have a tight end who's going to start off chipping the edge rusher and then running out and running a route. And just look at how difficult of a spot you're in if you're an edge rusher in this situation. So watch, right when this play begins, you see right here, what do? I guess you could still try a speed rush move, but the reality is a speed rush move at this point probably not going to work out. But then what? You have to just try to overpower Ekwonu? Look, the edge rusher does, he does nothing. Like, Ekwonu did not move in the slightest. Like, he did absolutely zero things there. Because what do you do in that spot? I guess you have to try to go with the speed rush move and just hope the play lasts 4.5 seconds. But you're almost better off at that point just being a contain guy and making sure the quarterback doesn't, get outside the pockets. So that's the benefit of Ekwonu, is he's so good at that kind of stuff. And we also saw, just to be clear, he won plenty of one-on-one matchups as well. You typically win the majority of one-on-one matchups if you're a tackle, and he won the majority of one-on-one matchups. I thought that he looked pretty good out there. Right when this play begins, you see right here what's going to happen is that you have an edge rusher who, this is kind of a typical situation. How do you win here? One thing that I think Ekwonu did a good job of is just getting a step over, making sure that he's not going to get beat with a speed rush move, because as long as he can get the hand placement he wants, he's fine. One thing I talk about a lot is with a left tackle, what's so important is your left hand. If you can get your left hand on kind of that right side of that Bills player's side of his body, get it sort of on his pec area, you're going to be fine. You're going to do well. As you see, he gets that hand placement and it's game over. He just able to completely knock him out of the play. Great job by Ekwonu, and he's able to make that block. And this is what we saw the majority of Ekwonu. I showed the one negative play up front, but the reality is this is what we saw from him. Like something like this, where I just thought that some of this stuff was great. I really did. Where it's going to be, again, a one-on-one block. Again, you see him be a little bit patient right here, gets that left hand on though, and he's relying on that left hand a lot. He's basically just saying, I think I can get my hand placement where I want, and if, you can find a way to get a good rip move, like we saw with that first play, it will generate a pressure for you, but I just trust that I'm not going to let that happen very often. And as you see, that's kind of exactly what happens, and again, no real even hint of pressure on that side of the ball, which for a 6th overall pick, that's kind of what you're hoping for. You're hoping for a guy who's just going to say, you know what, there's just not going to be pressure on this side. And again, with the exception of that first play, that's pretty much what we saw. Not always. We have to talk about this play, which was actually a sack he gave up, but it was kind of a weird sack he gave up so it's going to be a 4th down and 4 situation. And again, kind of the one thing I would like to see him do a little bit better of a job at is just, make sure that I think just get a little bit kind of more angled towards the sideline would probably be ideal. Ideally, you kind of want your feet to be sort of parallel to the player you're going up against. Feels like he's a little bit closer towards the facing forward, as in facing towards the end zone they're going towards, than maybe I would love. It just allows for players to kind of get to the outside a little bit easier than maybe you would like. Again, look, the edge rusher is able to get past him. It just makes it a little bit more difficult. You have a great left arm. Use that, and just just don't be afraid to lose ground to gain ground a little bit. Take a little bit of a step back and make sure you can sort of use your long reach, all that good stuff to make sure you make the block, because now there is sort of a pressure. It's not a bad play, because one thing that you can do in this situation is push the edge rusher behind the quarterback. And watch, he does that effectively. I mean, Mayfield scrambles around for a while, so it eventually results in a sack there, but to me, that's a fine play by Ekwonu. Like, is it a pressure still that he's given up? Probably. It's technically a sack he's given up as well, but at the same time, it's not a horrible play whatsoever. If you're a quarterback, you'll take those types of plays, and you'll take this type of performance of someone who typically wins and maybe had a couple of plays where it didn't go perfectly for him. You'll take that 10 out of 10 times. So that's kind of what I think. So at the end of the day, that's kind of how I view Ikem Ekwonu. I thought that he didn't win entirely, but even his losses didn't seem overly concerning to me, and he still won pretty consistently. Like again, if you care about like the advanced statistics and stuff, his win rate was very high. He was doing very good in the preseason. It is just preseason. You can only take so much out of it. But again, the first test typically is if you really struggle in the preseason, you'll probably struggle in the regular season. Not always. Even that isn't a one-to-one rule. We all remember Penei Sewell's issues coming out in the preseason, and he looked much better in the regular season. So because of that, I don't think it's an end-all, be-all regardless. It's only preseason. You can only take so much from it. But I think you can sort of learn little nuggets, right? You can see Ikem Ekwonu and say, okay, this maybe is a way that you could get beat, and it's something that we've theorized in college could be a way he could get beat, is sort of with outside moves, kind of using speed. I'm saying speed rush. To me, speed rush is, I'm really just saying outside moves in general, where you kind of use speed, which isn't necessarily just a speed rush, but also like, certain other moves. Again, I know there's probably some defensive line coach who's is driven crazy by some of the terminology I use, but I just use the way that I feel is simplest to understand. Basically my thought is, though, with Ekwonu, again, this guy's going to be great. Like, he's going to be great at the NFL level. I don't know the exact perfect way to use him just yet. I'm not sure if the Panthers know the exact perfect way to use him just yet, but there's so much talent here. He's going to be, I think he's going to end up being the best offensive lineman out of this draft class. The question is simply just how long will it take for him to get there and all of that stuff. But yeah, big fan of Ikem Ekwonu. Are you? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on him as a whole and also just his preseason performance? Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.